Guys, it's a great weekend for racing down here at Darlington Raceway in South Carolina. But it's that time of the weekend. Final practice for the Monster Energy Cup Series, guys. So it's a fun weekend. It's Throwback weekend. It's Southern 500. But for the next hour, I don't think it's a lot of fun in the garage here. It's time to figure out what your car needs for a long 500 miles Sunday afternoon.
Well, I think it would be fun for Denny Hamlin. He was really fast in the first practice, and if he could continue that, that makes it fun. And we think about Denny Hamlin. We talked about him in the first practice. He won the Xfinity race here last year. He won the Cup race here last year, and he hasn't won this year. So this is a chance where we know he's so good. Here in Martinsville, I think, are his two best shots coming up, and he was fast in that first practice.
Yeah, it's extremely hot out there today. Guys are not comfortable. They sweat a lot. You know, you've been in that car earlier today, and you just drenched. Got to climb back in it. This is the most important practice. So focusing, getting back in that car, making use of the adjustments you made in between practices, trying to learn on what you need to do to get your car better. Also, one of the things I'm going to be watching is what lines guys are running. Denny Hamlin has a unique line around this racetrack. Kevin Harvick has a unique line around this racetrack. It's different. Why do these guys run where they run on the racetrack, and will we see some of that in this practice?
Well, and personally, as a crew chief, this schedule used to somewhat agitate me. All the practice today, only qualifying tomorrow. The car is impounded. You can't work on it Sunday morning. So even though you're here for 3 days, all the decisions are going to be made tonight. So while Friday may seem a long ways from race day, it may be the most important day of the week to make the right decision to put your car on the racetrack.
Yeah, and they dropped the green flag after 6 o'clock. And right now, we're practicing in the heat of the days. And so Sunday night, it goes into nighttime. The track keeps cooling down. So who can learn what's the most important thing today, right? You think you're learning something, but are you learning something that you can apply to tomorrow night when the sun sets? And that's really the hardest thing.
Well, I've applied something I'll be able to learn. You talked about the temperature. I've finally got the right drivers in the right cars. With these paint schemes, they're awesome, and the throwbacks are cool. But, man, it takes a little while for me to remember which paint scheme is who. So my question is, as a race car driver, do you ever look in your mirror, right, when you're in these throwbacks, and you must race guys different ways? You're like, now, which car is that? I mean, is it just clear to you the number, the this? You know, how do you race people different with their cars looking different?
They're down in the garage, and by weekend's end, by Sunday, you have a pretty good idea of who's in what everybody's car looks like with the comings and goings and being out in and out of the garage and seeing the other cars on the racetrack as well and going through the tech line. You get a great idea of who's who, and it's a lot of fun. I mean, there's a lot of good energy from the teams and the drivers down in the garage because of these paint schemes. But you saw that temperature. Remember how tough it was at Chicago earlier this year? We got the temperature readings inside the cars. You saw, if you watched Xfinity, that those temperatures are 150 plus. So again, this is really tough, miserable conditions for these guys, but this is such an important practice of trying to focus, trying to do everything you can to learn what you can during this practice is going to be important. Not letting that heat get the best of you.
So, Kelly, you're down there in that heat, South Carolina heat, Labor Day weekend. How is it?
Yeah, just like to thank everyone for the opportunity to be back here at Darlington in the brutal heat of the summer. No, it's great. Obviously, with all the nostalgia, everyone has a little bit of a smile on their faces. I would just guess that no one, though, had a better off week than Kurt Busch, not just because he was hanging out in Greece with his beautiful wife, Ashley, and their family, but also because he had just won at Bristol. The team surprised him with a very cool flag we hope to show you in a little bit on top of the hauler. It's the same W win flag that the Chicago Cubs fly outside of Wrigley Field when they get a win. Kurt, obviously, a throwback here to his race back in 2003 that resulted in the closest ever finish in NASCAR history. He was on the losing end, of course, to Ricky Craven in a race that was decided by 0.02 of a second. But I just wanted to touch on all these different schemes and the confusion it can create for these drivers. Kurt Busch actually saying in practice one, he was asking his spotter, Tony Raines, to tell him exactly who was behind him when he was reading out distances and times, because he said, I have no idea who is in each of these cars. So it is definitely a challenge.
Wrong team, guys. I can't discuss that flag. As a loyal Red Sox fan, I can't do it.
As a announcer, broadcaster, it's difficult up here to know who's in what car. Steve, you weren't even scheduled to do the Xfinity practice, but you did it anyways, just so you could get, understanding of who's in what car.
So we talk about fantasy every week, and I try to help handicap who you should pick, and this was my big miss of the year. I said, man, Kurt Busch hasn't run great at Bristol in such a long time. I don't think he's a pick. Man, did he and the 41 team prove me wrong. Went out and took the lead away from his teammate, the 14, to Clint Boyer, in a late restart. And then it was kind of Kurt Busch at old at Bristol. Just slammed the door closed and went on to win that race.
Yeah, such a momentum builder for Kurt Busch and his team. And you have to wonder how it affects Clint Boyer and his team. They dominated the last part of that race, and really Kurt went and took that win from him on that last restart. An unbelievable restart. And, credit to him, but also now Clint and his guys, they got to find a way to come back and put themselves in position to get a win and then take that win from someone else.
Also puts pressure on Eric Almirola, the only teammate in that whole stable that hasn't won a race yet. Eric he doesn't want to be that guy. He's had opportunities this year, had some issues and failures and stuff that's caused him not to be able to capitalize on those great running cars that he's had, but he doesn't want to be the only guy in that stable not having success, so that puts pressure on him going forward as well.
See Ricky Stenhouse Jr. and his Chad Little throwback scheme. Now this scheme's helping me. 97, I was in the sport. 97 to 2000. This is a scheme that I remember, that old Ford Taurus.
Underappreciated.
Yeah. Look at the big spoiler, though. These guys would love to have that big spoiler they had back then.
They didn't stay on there long. Race 3, NASCAR decided that spoiler was too tall on the Taurus, and didn't take them long to cut that thing off.
Just the Taurus, huh?
Just the Taurus.
That's all he remembers.
That's the way it happened.
They only took it away from the Fords.
It was dominating. After 2 dominating races, they said enough's enough.
Well, y'all didn't think
Did you win one of the 2?
You had to dominate so much. Maybe you shouldn't have dominated so hard.
Well, we were Roush teammates for kind of making it happen that year.
Were you teammates with Chad?
Yeah, I was.
How was that? How was Chad?
Good. Chad's really good. Chad's a good teammate.
So, guys, we talk about, no, he's going to come in. Never mind. Cancel that whole thought. Laugh with Ricky. Ricky, you weren't listening. You were supposed to keep running.
Yeah, I thought Rick Allen was always the curse about this. Maybe it was you.
No, but it's definitely in the truck.
This is another throwback that's so good, it makes me appreciate the original. Like B. Benedetto's Jeff Burton throwback. This isn't throwback, but this is a guy who we've had on the Winsdale show this week, Daniel Suarez, and he's at a track that I think kind of suits his style.
Well, I was going to say, let's talk about this right here. Take us around here, Dale, how you drive such a difficult racetrack with the pedals and the wheel.
Well, I mean, it's a slick wore-out track, so you're going to be very careful on the throttle. You see him moving the throttle back and forth, coming on and off the throttle through that corner, trying to get power down. You're just trying to get power down, and you're having trouble keeping the right rear. A little bit of brake, not a ton. Got to get back to full throttle, then you start lifting again to get to that second apex right here on corner exit.
That's what's amazing to me. So the middle of 1 and 2 is almost like a straightaway. You're back to wide open.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's right. You see in turn 3, now he's going to take a little bit different approach. Not going to run all the way up against the wall. He's going to run at the bottom. The last several years, we've seen the bottom be the preferred lane in 3 and 4. But look at the effort Daniel Suarez is putting into this to drive in this car. And this, to me, is the coolest corner in all the race. You drive into one, up the hill, boom, back wide open throttle. Then you got to lift. And it's all about timing. And when you go back to the throttle off turn 2, that's it, man. I mean, running a lap at Darlington off of turn 2 is just exhilarating. It's the only way to describe it.
I love this. Is such a challenging track. I love being able to see the roof cam and the driver at the same time, kind of understanding. You can't really see from the roof just how much he's actually working the steering wheel. But, man, you can tell it's a slick track. Daniel's got his hands full. These aren't really old tires, but you can see the car's already on top of the track, especially through here, really chasing the back.
You see a thermometer kind of right behind the seat, right below that Coca-Cola sign. It's about 116. It looks like kind of hard to see with the reflection. My question is 500 laps. I mean, he's working hard. Your arms, your hands, your cramp. I mean, 500 laps around here seems like a heavyweight fight.
Yeah, you're doing it every week. And if you know Daniel and you follow him on social media, this guy's a workout freak. I mean, he's in the gym every single day just about. So if there's anybody that can handle that, it's definitely going to be a guy like him. And there's some guys that maybe don't put as much effort in or put as much focus on their physical fitness, and it might be a tough race for those guys.
The other thing Daniel's dealing with is that he's run now coming up on his 5th lap, and he has slowed down over a half a second in only 5 laps. So he's continuing to have to change the way he drives that race car based on the amount of tires, the amount of grip that the tires have. So here we go. Our first break, Ryan Newman on top of the board right now at Darlington. You're watching Monster Energy Cup Series practice from Darlington. Love this racetrack. Catch all the action of NASCAR on NBC with the NBC Sports app. Get closer with alternate camera angles, driver stats, and track information.
We talked some about Ricky Stenhouse in the 17. How about 22 right here of Joey Logano? This is the Steve Park throwback scheme. That's the DEI stripes down the side. June, you had the red and white scheme, but the same sort of paint out. They all had that same look to it. There it is, the Steve Park scheme. I think about drivers that need just something.
I'm proud of Joey and these guys. Their throwbacks have been kind of weird throwbacks over the last couple of years, but they really brought the game. They brought the A game this year.
I mean, I'm giving as identical as I think you could get. This is a team that I'm just waiting. I know they got that win at Talladega, but just something, right? They just need something to kind of kickstart their year, and we're almost through the regular season.
Really, all of Penske, you could say the same thing, and they're good. They're just not great.
Right.
Competing against the top, there's three guys we talk about every single weekend. You're going to have to be great to win this championship, or get your way through every round somehow, some way. Get your way through every round and then get to Homestead. And if you can bring the heat to Homestead, maybe you can win that championship.
You know what I'm starting to realize as I'm seeing these throwback schemes?
Yeah.
The reduced spoiler size is really changing the paint scheme look, because that is a small little spoiler on the 22.
Denny Hamlin's mini stock.
I gotta say, man, this might be my favorite.
Wouldn't it be cool to see a mini stock go around
I'm
here?
still not 100% sure which one's my favorite, but this one is in the battle. I like how the numbers slid back on the door. That's real old school. The number's not centered perfectly on the door, and the sponsor is in front of the number.
And it's there. And Chesterfield Trailer and Hitch is on the door.
That has yet to be attempted in our throwback history here at Darlington, and I love it.
Listen, I don't know if Chesterfield Trailer and Hitch has a website, but I guarantee it's getting more traffic than it ever has. Kelly.
Well, we showed just before we went to break the graphic of the fastest cars who have put down a lap in this practice. At the top of that list is the 31 of Ryan Newman, and this has been a trend really over recent weeks, so we've definitely seen more speed out of the 31 and his teammate Austin Dillon in the 3 car. Ryan Newman, one of those drivers who is used to being in the playoffs, but now in a must-win situation with just 2 of these races to go before the start of the playoffs, if he's going to be a part of it. But this track has been very good for him historically. He has his best average finish here at Darlington. He's had top 10s in 4 of the last 5 races here. And it was funny. I went over to talk to Andy Petrie, their vice president of competition, really to talk about their paint schemes. And I said, you got a couple of good-looking race cars there. And he said, yes, they're really fast. He said he feels like they are bringing their best stuff to the track right now. He said, I think we're peaking at the right time. It's all about getting this 31 to the playoffs, and we're going to get everything we've got this next couple of weeks.
Well, you see the playoff points on the left side. The concern for that 31 at 91 points behind is consistency, and a good run just isn't going to be enough in my mind. It's going to take victory. He's going to have to find a way to get to victory lane. But the one thing I'll say is a 500-mile race. Lots of yellows, perhaps, lots of tires being used. That kind of is more what the 31 suited for, right? Some sort of different track position is where they seem to find their way to work their way to the front.
Strategy has been the strength of this team in the past, and with all those tires, maybe you stay out, save a set of tires for later, or maybe you pit when other people don't, and you don't get that late caution, and everybody else has a set of tires sitting there never used. And then, weird thing, we got the Brickyard 400 next week. Yeah. Another race where you have a chance to see some strategy play come in. So that's their way forward, I think. I don't see them just going out leading, a bunch of laps and winning this race, but positioning late in the race, they can make it happen.
One guy that is locked in from his win at Watkins Glen, Chase Elliott.
Yeah, this is a sentimental paint scheme for the Elliott family. This is Casey Elliott, which is Chase's late cousin. He ran this paint scheme in the NASCAR All-Pro and the Xfinity Series.
Chase second on the board. He ran a qualifying run. I'm assuming it started practice with 1 lap back on the track.
And Casey was going to move into the Xfinity Series full-time in '94, and unfortunately he was diagnosed with bone cancer and ultimately lost his life in '96 at only the age of 21. So a heartfelt throwback, I'd say, is fair to say.
And we talk about, an uptick in performance. I think this is the team I have my eye on. You look at the first 19 races. No wins, no stage wins, only 4 top 5 finishes, only 19 laps led. But in the last 5 races, it's not just that win at Watkins Glen. Stage wins, top 5s, laps led. This 9 car, I'm not saying he's going to go out and outrun that 4 and the 18 week in and week out, but he's gone out and outrun them. He's passed them on the racetrack. He's won stages, won a race. That's a glimmer of hope for this 9 and perhaps all of Hendrick Motorsports. I'm waiting to see that speed, trickle through the rest of the cars.
Way back in Chicago, track that Chase has run really good at, I asked him about his success there, and he said that's just tracks that we've actually been bringing cars with updates to. That's why we've been running so well there, and I think that's exactly what's happened to this team over the last couple weeks, is that they continue to update and make great upgrades to their cars at the right time. I mean, they're peaking at the perfect time.
This team can win the championship.
Yep.
They are good enough to put themselves in position and go to Homestead with a shot. They are the team that's showing they can contend.
NASCAR and NBCSN is brought to you by Monster Energy. Unleash the beast. All right, it's that time of the weekend, guys. We're going to go on the clock and run through all these cool paint schemes and the guys that drive them and where they are for the season. Let's start with Clint Boyer in the 14, running the 1965 Ned Jarrett Throwback. Big shoes to fill. Gentleman Ned Jarrett won by 14 laps, the biggest margin of victory ever in the Cup Series. He did it here at Darlington. And when you look at Clint's numbers here at Darlington, he's going to need a little of that Ned Jarrett magic. Okay so far this weekend, but his is not a very good track for him. His best finish is just barely inside the top 10. Looking for a little bit more out of the 14 here.
Well, Alex Bowman sitting right there on the edge of making the playoffs. If you get a surprise winner, Alex Bowman, as we currently sit, would be the guy that would not transfer into the playoffs with a chance to win the championship. And for a young driver, I know he has a lot of laps under his belt, but this is a very difficult racetrack. I think this is a big test for this team this weekend. If they don't have two bad weekends, they're advancing on, but how much better can this team get moving forward, and can they contend when the championship race starts?
Paul Menard, 17th in practice right now. He's got 14 laps on the board out there in race trim. It's the 50th anniversary of Yarborough's Southern 500 win in 1968. The paint scheme that he's got on his car looks great. The Wood brothers, they have so much history, so many paint schemes to pull from. Yarborough led 169 laps and beat future Wood brothers driver David Pearson driving for Holman Moody in that race.
Well, the 20 of Eric Jones, we saw spun a little bit coming to pit road earlier in the first practice, doing a little practice there. And we talk about a lot of throwbacks. How about a spotter throwback? Eric Jones is driving a Rick Corelli throwback back when he used to run in the Remax truck, and Corelli is the spotter for Eric Jones. So that's going to be cool to stand on the roof and see your own scheme running around there. And when you look at Eric Jones, got that breakthrough win this year at Daytona. I think that has to take a little pressure off him. He finally got with the victory lane. Now it's about settling in and learning about the playoffs, going through that pressure in the next 10 weeks, understanding what it's like.
Well, guess whose throwback it is on Richard Petty's car? This is the one car every year I know who the throwback's going to be for. You just cannot replace iconic blue. Cool story about that color blue. They kind of just mixed it up. They had a bunch of paint, didn't have one color. They just mixed a bunch of paint up and came up with that color, and that turned into Petty blue.
Well, that Petty blue doesn't have any orange on it because this was the first ever race. This is before they worked on that combo paint scheme.
Almirola, he used to be in the 43 car, now he's in the 10 car. Got the Smithfield Foods on the car today. He's on the racetrack for the second time. He had a single lap run. He put him in 11th. I guess that would be a Q run. Back out there again. Oh, he's in the fence a little bit right there. Entering turn 1. Back it down, come down pit road. Take a look at that damage. Should be no big deal. Be able to work that out. Let's take a replay of that. See how that happened. Just driving the car a little bit too hard. Let's see, he's pretty high already. Pretty good shot.
I consider that more than a strike.
That's at turn 1, just entered a touch high, it looked like to me, and
they'll work on that. He'll get out there and run some more. Make sure the ball joints and everything on the right front are good. He be good to go.
Well, someone who's used to running close to the wall, the 42 of Kyle Larson, known for running that high side. Well, here in Darlington, everyone is going to be up there, and he's running a Davey Allison throwback. A little different color scheme, but the same layout. That 28 Haviland car that Davey made so famous. When I look at teams that have had a good year, but they're looking for a great year, the 42 of Kyle Larson comes to mind. Still winless. That shocked me. I would have had him winning a race by now. And I think that's what he's going to need to get some momentum. 10 for a championship. Forget about points. Forget about all that. He needs a win to get some momentum on his side.
Well, how about Ty Dillon in this 13 car? This is the throwback to Jermaine's Racing's first Cup Series debut in 2009. Old Max Pappas. Max was driving this race car. Finished top 10 at Watkins Glen that year. Got a 8th place finish. And kind of crazy because Max ended up being kind of Ty Dillon's tutor. He was helping him early in his career, helping him learn the sport, all the small things you need to be doing, all the prep you need to be doing. So now Ty Dillon gets a chance to kind of throw it back and say thank you to Max Pappas.
His brother in a 3-car, Austin Dillon, they unveiled this car today. Apparently no one had seen the car until it was rolled out of the hauler this morning, and man, it's a great looking scheme. I remember that all too well. Dad really was proud of that car. Thought it looked great. It looks great here this weekend. They had good speed early in the first practice. Hoping to back that up this practice here and throughout the rest of the weekend. A team that's in the playoffs, trying to improve their performance.
When I think of NASCAR history, there are certain paint schemes like the Kings that just jump out to me, but Bobby Allison's just, this is it. This is Bobby Allison's car, the Miller High Life, number 12, gold and white. I mean, the Buick on the right-hand side of the screen back from 88. Landon Castle with 00 on the left. I applaud Starcom on the side of this car for allowing this team to get this authentic. When you look at that car in the garage here, it's the same red lettering, the same breakup from gold to white. A great looking paint scheme here for the Southern 500 Memorial Day, or excuse me, Labor Day, end of the summer, the whole other end of the summer.
The hot part. So when you're William Byron and you were a young guy and you were watching racing and Jeff Gordon was driving this car and now you're driving this car with that same number on it, that has got to be an amazing feeling. Think about all the wins that Jeff Gordon, the Rainbow Warriors, had with this car. Won 3 titles and 52 wins. Jeff Gordon made a name for himself quickly in this sport, and he was so good at this racetrack. Jeff Gordon with a lot of Southern 500 wins.
Matt DiBenedetto, this one goes way, way, way back in the history of the sport. I can't even believe I'm standing next to this guy. Jeff Burton's 2000 Exide scheme. Who knew that Matt was such a big fan of Jeff Burton? And they've done a great job with this paint scheme too, and just such an impressive little team. So underfunded, challenged in so many ways. Matt, he claws all the time, week in and week out, every day of the week, on social media, every chance you get to improve this team.
All right, guys, under 30 minutes left, only 26 minutes left in final practice here at Darlington Raceway. These teams are continue to work on their cars. Some have made qualifying runs, but we're starting to see some longer runs. Jimmy only ran 1 lap, so his average is great, but look at the total laps down there. Bowman, Kyle Busch, 17 laps apiece. Here's average laps so far in this practice at Darlington.
Getting physical here at Darlington Raceway like it's supposed to be. Somebody's got to give. Getting into turn 1.
They both. Busch brushes the wall. They bounce off each other. Craven has the lead. Busch back underneath, regains the top spot.
Oh, baby. I'm telling you, Kurt Busch is not going to give up the win.
Ricky Craven in hot pursuit, pedal to the metal. Craven has another shot, but only one. Busch, Craven, nose to tail. Here comes Craven down to the bottom, trying to hang on. Both cars are loose and form.
It's going to be a drag race. Wow. They touch. Craven got him. Craven got him. What a finish. Have you ever? No, I've never.
It was an awesome race. I didn't give him room in 1, and he didn't give me room out of 4. It's the way it's supposed to be. I mean, this was some hard-fought racing.
You know, I've done this for over 20 years. And as a racer, you dream of that. It was absolutely the most fun I've ever had.
Not often you see racing like that where 2 guys beat each other up for the last several laps and then they're high-fiving each other in victory lane, but hopefully we're going to get some of that tomorrow night. The Xfinity race on NBC, race coverage begins at 3:30 Eastern. Then you got Sunday, Monster Energy Cup race on NBC SN starting at 6 p.m.
It's funny combo of races, right? It's the Southern 500. Over 4 hours on Sunday. A sprint race on Saturday. I mean, this is one of the shortest Xfinity races of the year.
I texted my sister today. I said, I think I want to run this Darlington Xfinity race next year.
Oh, really?
Yeah, this is
no, breaking news.
Oh, look, I actually saw my man Tony Gibson right there in the black baseball hat. He had some medical issues here for the last month, was out of the garage. He had to be away from work. I saw him this week. He's back to being old man Gibson. He had that cackle, that laugh. It was wonderful to see him. This is a mentor of mine. When I worked at Hendrick Motorsports over 24 car, he was the car chief for many years, taught me a lot about racing. He is a racer through and through. It is wonderful to see Tony back in the garage here.
He's over there helping the 10 guys work on that side. So he's a company guy, man. He's kind of close to the 41 team. That's who he was associated with for so many years as the crew chief. But he's a big part of Stuart Haas, and it's great to see him healthy in the garage. And looks great, man. Kelly.
Yeah, he is a throwback himself, isn't he? Their old man. I got to tell you, he's been down on his knees. He had a wrench in his hand. He's had a hammer in his hand as they've been working on Eric Almirola's car on this right rear, just trying to get it hammered out, make sure they have good clearance there. You talked about his health issues, Steve. He sent out a tweet yesterday taking a picture of the tunnel entrance here at Darlington and said 2 months ago, I thought I would never see a racetrack again. Glad to be back, and I can tell you, speaking for a lot of people, everyone's glad to have Tony Gibson back here in the garage.
One of the things you forget about, he crew chiefed the 10 car at one point as well. You know, there's a bit of a team swap, so he's been in and around that organization in many different capacities. He also was a crew chief for me, worked at DEI for many years, worked at HMS for many years, a car chief on the 24. It's just his history in the sport runs deep.
And so think about him. He's laying in the hospital bed a few weeks ago. It's almost 100 degrees here today, and he's down on all fours working on that race car. I mean, that's many people are still at home, and here he is working.
I was going to tell Kelly, don't rat him out to his doctors. I'm not sure what he's supposed to be doing.
Or his wife.
He tweeted this week that thought he'd never see a racetrack again. So, so good to see him back.
So I can about tell you these two guys are going to be part of the story Sunday night. I mean, they've just all year long been so good, and see the 4-car on racetrack, and obviously Kyle coming off the racetrack, and they've been consistently. I know Martin Truex Jr., we've thrown him in there too, but I think these two really have been the very best. And see right there, the 4-car, some we didn't see in the first practice. Kevin Harvick right against the wall in 1 and 2. We talked about how normally he likes to run a little bit lower, save himself from getting in trouble. And see here in 3 and 4, using a little bit of racetrack, trying to accelerate. Now you want to stay full throttle, but listen to the throttle, listen to the difference in 1 and 2, how he has to get on and off the gas.
Hear that car bottoming out. Side skirts hit the ground.
See below the white line, that's turned into the preferred lane, running below that line.
Yeah, that lap through there in 3 and 4 is typically where he runs.
And just to be clear, that's off the racing surface.
Yes. It's on the left sides are on the apron. You'll see some guys run all 4 on the apron at that particular point of the track sometimes.
Restarts.
Yeah.
Restarts, they're way on the bottom.
And when you go onto the apron, it de-wedges the car. It helps the car turn. Helps the car turn and rotate through the center.
And I think the asphalt down there isn't as worn as the other. It has less banking, but where the groove is, they repaved this racetrack 10 years ago or so. It's good asphalt down there. It's gotten worn off in the groove, and down there I think the asphalt's a little better. And good to see Jamie McMurray back on the racetrack. He had an engine explosion and only after 1 lap. Look at all this, and just oil everywhere. Had to red flag the racetrack rather. And look at all that oil, Steve.
Yeah, and engine changes used to be a 30, 40-minute thing when you had to change them every weekend, but now they're not designed to be changed that quick. So it took this one team quite a bit of time looking at the explosion. They had to probably go through the oil lines and everything. He's only run 3 laps in this practice, so 4 laps total. It's going to be a very important last 17 minutes or so for this one of Jamie McMurray. Throwback weekend here at Darlington.
special moment in the history of stock car racing.
A native Hoosier, his dream comes true. Yes!
The only way to win is to attack it, but when you attack it, there's a price to be paid.
It's the hardest race I have around.
About ready to come into tears.
Just as happy winning this than we was the first one.
Yeah, baby!
Domination. Guys, it's very unique to have 2 crown jewel races back to back. It's just something we've not really seen in our sport before. Next week, the NASCAR Monster Energy Cup Series will head back to Indianapolis for the Brickyard 400, and it will include a free concert, free, Steve.
I like that.
With Florida-Georgia Line. It's a regular season finale, so don't miss a chance to see the winner kiss the bricks and become part of racing history. Visit NASCAR.com/tickets to purchase your tickets today.
Well, it's a weekend of action, right? You're going to have a little Xfinity racing, a little Cup racing, a little I won't say little, big concert Saturday night.
They have great concerts.
Man.
A lot of people come in the infield. It's a lot of fun. Great atmosphere.
Dirt track. Yeah, a dirt track earlier in the week, and guess what? Later in the year, it's going to be at least below the normal 110 that it normally is when we go to the break.
Racing over at Lucas Oil Raceway as well. So great weekend of racing in Indianapolis.
Casey Kane right here throwing back to himself in 2006, a dominant year. I think he had 6 wins, 6 poles that year. That car at a 1.5-mile track, man, you had better look out. And here this week, man, he's currently 7th on the board with his fastest lap. I'm assuming that's in qualifying trim, but he's run 24 laps total. So with all these throwbacks, I asked Cole Pert about his throwback, and he kind of poked me, and he said, yeah, ours is a throwback to the Pocono winner a few months ago, and kind of laughed. And
you know, I think about this team right now, and we've included them in the big 3 for obvious reasons, their success, but with all the, the turmoil about what the future of this team is, I think that it's going to be hard for them to continue to push. You know, they're talking about what is the future as far as sponsorship, and Martin Truex Jr. hadn't signed his contract, all those things, and they're really going to have to work hard to stay focused with all these distractions happening, and it's going to be fascinating to watch how they deal with it. Because no matter what you think, this is how people make their living.
Yeah, oh yeah.
All the people that work on this car, Martin Truex, everybody involved, this is how they make their living. This is how they pay their mortgage. This is how they send their kids to school. And if you start questioning that, it's hard for it not to become a distraction. We know this team is capable, but can they put all that stuff behind them and move forward?
We won here back in 2016. Come down pit road. Challenging Kyle Larson here. He's going to beat these guys off pit road. Kept him up towards the front all night long with those great pit stops.
You see on the racetrack how good the 78 was, going by the 31, and then as you mentioned it, pit road, they were just flawless all night. So many pit stops, we're going to see 10, 11, 12, maybe 13 pit stops here. And once he got control of the race, he just kept it.
Solid performance. Came back last year and had another great run, spoiled by a flat tire, but expect to see them competitive again this weekend.
And this is a team, when they're on, they can just dominate. They can just take the race away from everybody. They're so fast. We're looking at average speeds. Amaroli sees long lap counts, which helps him on his average speed, but look at Newman and Kyle Busch, and even Harvick with 40 laps down in 10.
Cup Series practice from Darlington Raceway. Hey, it's not just cars on track, Burton. We got NASCAR America Fan Edition live here from Darlington. Joey Logano, Kyle Busch, David Reagan, but Junior, I think you're double booked, bud.
I am, man.
You better leave. You got to be...
I've got to go downstairs to be on the Fan Friday show. So
does the pit box have air conditioning?
I don't think it does.
You guys get the rest of this for me.
No, I mean, don't say so motivated.
I'm excited.
He's not excited.
I love being in the booth, but I'm going to go down this Fan Friday. We're going to have some fun. We're going to have David Reagan, Kyle Busch. Logano's going to come up there. We get to talk to those guys. Burton, you're going down in the infield to see some fans and see what's going on in the campground, so that'll be pretty interesting.
All right, well, don't be late. You better
Similar.
go.
If you saw us in Michigan, it's kind of the same thing.
All right, good
fun.
luck. Good luck. That was just the 2 of us.
That's true.
We could go completely off the rails at this point. So, you know what I think is really like 7 championships, all those wins. But when you throw back to yourself, this is the 2012. I didn't know you could only throw back 6 years, but if anybody can, Jimmy Johnson can. What makes this paint scheme so special is it was not just a winner here at Darlington, but this was win 200 for Hendrick Motorsports, a milestone win. We just saw Chase Elliott get 250. This win for 200 was not easy to come by. The whole company, I was there at the time, I was a crew chief. We hit a lull. We could not break through. Everybody wanted to deliver number 200 for Mr. Hendrick. I think it was only fair that Jimmy Johnson, Chad Canal, so much success they delivered it. You see how much it means. Mike Helton, cool little montage with all the victory lanes and the pictures. And we talk about guys that are winless. 47 races.
And they just haven't shown any signs. Like, you look at the number of laps led this year for these guys, it's amazingly low, but you're starting to see Hendrick Motorsports bring a little more speed, but we haven't seen it transfer so much to this team yet. But you know, at any point, he's still Jimmy Johnson. He's still a 7-time champion. He still has Chad Canals, also a 7-time champion. At any moment, we all keep waiting for it to happen. And it wouldn't surprise me at a place like this where you have to be aggressive, but also have to be smart. I think this kind of racetrack falls into Jimmy Johnson's wheelhouse.
Let me tell you, you don't want to wake this team up. You know, don't sleep on Jimmy Johnson. I know the numbers don't. We've already talked more about him than his numbers this year probably demand, but that's because his career numbers, he leads every category of active drivers. There's not an active driver with more, name it, leading laps, wins. I mean, he leads them all. You do not want to wake this team up.
And almost every driver and team goes through this. I remember Dale Earnhardt. He had a couple years where they just couldn't run well at all. I remember going to the airport after a race, and a guy had written on the back of his car, Earnhardt, time to cash in the 401k. I mean, you're talking about Dale Earnhardt, a 7-time champion, whom the next year finished 2nd in points. So it happens in people's careers, and if they ever get running well, the sting of what's been going on with them will be present. And when they get in position, man, they will do anything it takes to win.
Well, under 6 minutes left here in practice. Cars continue to make race runs. What you got down there, Kelly?
Well, the 42 of Kyle Larson now back out on the track. Their plan to start this practice was to try to get 3 long race runs in. Well, if you look at his lap count, I think he's just now approaching 20 laps. When you compare that to guys like Joey Logano, who's turned 56 laps, obviously that hasn't come to fruition. Kyle at one point saying that he was losing so much grip in turns 3 and 4 that it felt like he had a tire going down. Also, some interesting comments from Kyle earlier today in the media center where he was talking about Bristol. Said he had to basically apologize to his crew chief, Chad Johnston, for being kind of a jerk on the radio. Said he just got really negative, was so frustrated with the way that they were running. Once he was able to turn his expectations into more realistic ones, he said he had a more positive attitude. But I just kind of like that spirit from him. It shows how competitive he is. Chad Johnston said, I'm the same way. I want to go out there and dominate week in and week out. And as you said earlier, it's just surprising that this is a team as solid as they were a year ago still has yet to find victory lane.
Yeah, Kelly, what I found fascinating about his comments was that when you said he had to get more realistic expectations, that's so important in a race, Steve, because if you go into that race with full expectation, I'm going to win this race, and you don't have the speed to do it, you have to adjust. And then emotionally, you have to adjust as well. They ended up finishing 2nd, and some of that was because they did make adjustments and create new goals to put themselves in position.
You start every race hoping you're going to win it, but at some point, you have to let the facts be what they are. Sometimes top 5, top 10.
Those guys, the top 4 in points, Scott Dixon, Alex Rossi, Will Power, Joseph Newgarden, they all have 3 wins. And they're separated by not a lot of points. They got a tight point battle coming down to the end of their season.
Oh, look at this view right here on the helmet of Darrell Wallace Jr. in this 43 STP scheme. All blue scheme, not very recognizable. This was the first ever race Richard Petty ran out of Riverside. Actually won with it before he went to Daytona, and they put the Dayglow orange on it that next week. And talk about a view. This is Darlington at its finest.
So I absolutely love this racetrack, and this is why. So driving to turn 3, look at that, all 4 tires below the white line. He carries it all the way around the corner. Makes me think he's in a qualifying run, trying to use all of that racetrack. Let's see if he shuts it down. No, he's continuing on. So drive into 1, right against the wall, back on the throttle. And right here, man, you want to stay out as long as you can, then turn as late as you can, get your left sides across that line. It's an incredible corner. Whoever built this racetrack was a bit crazy, I can tell you, because it's nuts how you have to drive this racetrack.
And I'm a fan of it.
Look how low he is, Steve. He is on the bottom.
So you know, I always hear guys talk about, well, there's only one way to get around Darlington. I have to disagree.
100%.
I think while 1 and 2 is narrow, I think there are small little details. How early you turn off the wall, how low he turns right here in turn 2 is very different. You go down here in 3 and 4, and you can drive up to the wall early. Oh, he's waving. He's going to take a hard run to pit road. Let's take a look at this, because this is not easy.
He's practicing pit road. Smart thing to do. The hardest pit road to get on
no
right
dice,
now.
buddy.
See how long it was?
No
He missed
dice.
it. He
no
missed it.
dice. No
You can't
dice.
see it. You saw, you were looking what he can see, and you cannot see it until you're there. And the only way to experience is to do exactly what he did. Make this mistake today, not Sunday night.
Well, if I'm him, I'm going up to speed best I can here in the backstretch. I'm going to give it another run.
Yes, exactly.
I'm going to tell you, that pit road's so difficult. Parker, Kligerman, and I went out in the pace car to look at some of those patches, and we drove around there at 65 miles an hour and almost missed the commitment box.
You have to lift. Look, see right here, this view? You cannot see the entrance of pit road. It isn't until about right here where you can see it. And if you're carrying too much speed, there's no way you can ever get it turned.
Jimmy Johnson just made it in front of the 43 right there. All right, let's take it back where you can tuck. He's going to come down here. He waves. Now he's decelling.
2, 1, 3. Watch your stack up the over here.
Yeah, I'm not going to make it, guys.
Nope.
But smartly bailed out.
Hey, not a lot of starts here. Those are the details you got to get right before the race.